The corridors of Galactic Military Academy buzzed with activity as hundreds of cadets moved between their training sessions. Tyler Brooks walked steadily through the crowd, his boots making heavier sounds than most others around him. He had been at the academy for 6 months now, but he still felt like an outsider. Being human meant being different here. His instructors had explained it during orientation. Earth was what they called a Class 9 death world. Most species in the galaxy could not survive there for even a day. The gravity alone would crush their bones. The bacteria would kill them in hours. The weather could freeze or burn them. The animals saw them as food. Humans had evolved in that nightmare. It made them strong. It made them fast. It made them dangerous. Tyler did not feel dangerous. He just felt tired. Training at the academy was supposed to be hard, but for him it felt easy. Too easy. When other cadets struggled to lift weights, he barely noticed them. When they gasped for air after running, he was still breathing normally. In combat simulations, his reflexes were so fast that instructors had to review the footage in slow motion to see what he did. The other cadets noticed. Some looked at him with respect. Others with fear. And 7 of them looked at him with pure hatred. Those 7 came from low-gravity worlds. Places where people floated more than walked. Where bones were thin and delicate. Where strength came from technology, not muscle. They had been the best athletes in their classes before Tyler arrived. Now they were just average. Their leader was Krev, a Zentari from a moon with barely any gravity at all. Krev was tall and thin, with long arms and legs that moved in ways that looked strange to Tyler. Back on his homeworld, Krev had been a champion. Here at the academy he had graduated top of his class in tactics. His future had been bright. Then Tyler broke every physical record in the academy's database within his first month. The harassment started small. Tyler's training schedule would mysteriously change, making him miss important sessions. His equipment would disappear right before exercises. Someone spread rumors that humans were too primitive for real military work, that they were just animals pretending to be civilized. Tyler ignored it all. His instructors told him to focus on his studies and not cause trouble. So he kept his head down and his mouth shut. He did his work, aced his tests, and tried to be invisible. But the incidents kept getting worse. Last week, someone had put a chemical in his food that would have made most humans sick for days. Tyler's immune system fought it off in hours, another Deathworlder advantage. 3 days ago, his environmental suit had been tampered with before a zero-gravity drill. If he had not checked it carefully, the suit would have failed in vacuum. He would have died. Station security investigated but found nothing. No proof. No witnesses. Just accidents, they said. Tyler knew better. He knew exactly who was responsible. But without evidence he could not accuse anyone. So he became more careful. He checked everything twice. He varied his routes through the station. He avoided being alone in isolated areas. Tonight, he had stayed late in the training gym, working on hand-to-hand combat techniques. The gym was in the older section of the station, far from the main cadet quarters. By the time he finished, most other students had already returned to their dorms. Tyler walked through the empty corridors, his footsteps echoing off the metal walls. The lights were dimmer in this section, set to night mode to save power. He knew the way well. Through the training wing, past the equipment storage rooms, then through the maintenance corridor that connected to the main residential area. As he entered the maintenance corridor, something felt wrong. Tyler could not explain it exactly. Maybe it was a sound that did not fit. Maybe it was a shadow that moved wrong. Maybe it was just instinct, that primitive part of his brain that had kept his ancestors alive on Earth. Whatever it was, every nerve in his body suddenly screamed danger. He kept walking at the same pace, not showing that he had noticed anything. But his senses sharpened. His muscles tensed slightly. His breathing became controlled and steady. Behind him he heard it. Footsteps. Multiple sets. 7, his brain counted automatically. They were trying to be quiet, but human hearing was far better than they realized. Another Deathworlder advantage. The corridor ahead narrowed where construction crews were renovating an old section. Plastic sheets hung from the ceiling. Tool crates lined the walls. The emergency lighting cast strange shadows everywhere. Tyler noticed something important. No security cameras. This section was offline for the renovations. They had chosen their ambush point carefully. Tyler's heart rate increased slightly, but not from fear. It was his body preparing itself, flooding his system with adrenaline. His ancestors had survived by being ready to fight or run at any moment. That same biology was activating now. He considered his options. He could run, but that would just delay the confrontation. He could call for security, but they were minutes away and he had no proof of a threat yet. He could try to talk his way out, though he doubted that would work. The footsteps behind him grew closer. They were not trying to hide anymore. Tyler took a slow, deep breath and kept walking forward. The narrow section was just ahead. If they were going to do something, it would be there. Away from cameras. Away from witnesses. In a place where they could claim it was an accident if anyone asked questions later. He had hoped it would not come to this. For 6 months he had endured their harassment. He had ignored their insults. He had walked away from confrontations. He had done everything his instructors told him to do. But some situations could not be resolved with patience and diplomacy. Tyler reached the entrance to the narrow section. The construction zone stretched ahead for about 30 meters. Emergency lights flickered. The air smelled like metal and cleaning chemicals. It was quiet except for the hum of the station's life support systems. And the footsteps behind him now very close. Tyler walked into the narrow section. His muscles were loose and ready. His mind was calm and clear. Whatever happened next, he was prepared. The footsteps suddenly quickened. Tyler heard movement from the sides too. They were not just following him anymore. They were surrounding him. He stopped walking and stood still, waiting. His hands hung relaxed at his sides. His breathing stayed steady. To anyone watching, he looked calm. But inside, every system in his Deathworlder body was ready to explode into action. The trap was sprung. Now he would see if they really understood what they were dealing with. 7 against 1. They thought the numbers gave them an advantage. They were about to learn why you should never corner a predator from Earth. Tyler stood perfectly still as the 7 cadets emerged from their hiding spots. They came from both sides of the corridor and from behind, moving into a practiced formation. This was not a random attack. They had planned it carefully. Krev stepped forward from the group, positioning himself directly in front of Tyler. The Zentari held a shock baton in his long fingers. The weapon hummed with blue energy, designed to deliver a painful electric shock. 6 other cadets flanked him on both sides, each holding their own batons. The blue glow reflected off their faces in the dim light. Tyler recognized all of them. Dren was there, a cadet from a water world with skin that shimmered like scales. Pac stood next to him, short and stocky by his species standards but still smaller than Tyler. The others he knew by sight, all from low-gravity worlds, all former top performers in physical training before he arrived. Going somewhere, Deathworlder? Krev's voice came through his translator with a sharp edge. Tyler took a slow breath and kept his hands visible and relaxed. Just heading back to my dorm. You should all do the same. I don't think so. Krev moved closer, his baton crackling with energy. We've been talking. We all agree that you don't belong here. This academy is for civilized species, not primitive brutes who only got in because they come from a death trap planet. The others murmured agreement, tightening their circle around Tyler. He was now completely surrounded with nowhere to run. The nearest exit was blocked by 3 of them. The corridor behind him had 2 more. Krev and another cadet sealed off the front. You're making a mistake, Tyler said calmly. His voice showed no fear, just a flat statement of fact. Walk away now and we can forget this happened. Krev laughed, a sound that his translator turned into something harsh and mocking. You think you can threaten us? 7 against 1 and we're armed. Your Deathworlder tricks won't help you now. I'm not threatening anyone, Tyler replied. I'm warning you. Please just walk away. Dren stepped forward, raising his baton. We're done with warnings, human. You have 2 choices. Quit the academy tomorrow or we make you quit. Accidents happen in training all the time. Maybe you get hurt so badly you have to go home. Tyler's jaw tightened. So that was their plan. Hurt him badly enough that he would be medically discharged. In an isolated corridor with no cameras, they could claim self-defense or even that they found him already injured. I'm not quitting, Tyler said quietly. Wrong answer. Krev nodded to the others. Teach him some respect. Pac moved first, lunging forward with his baton aimed at Tyler's ribs. It was meant to be a quick strike, painful but not permanently damaging. A warning shot. What happened next would be debated in academy classrooms for years afterward. Tyler's body reacted before Pac even finished his lunge. Millions of years of evolution on a world filled with predators had programmed certain responses into human biology. When threatened, a human's perception of time seemed to slow down. Adrenaline flooded the system. Muscles moved with explosive speed. Tyler's hand snapped out and caught Pac's wrist mid-swing. The cadet's bones were thin and light, adapted for low gravity. The grip shattered his radius and ulna instantly. Pac screamed. Tyler pulled Pac forward and sideways, using the cadet's own momentum against him. Pack crashed into Dren, and both of them went down in a tangle of limbs. Dren's head hit the metal floor with a sickening crack. 1.2 seconds had passed. Krev swung his baton at Tyler's head from the left. Tyler ducked under it smoothly, and the weapon whooshed through empty air. As he came up, Tyler's elbow drove into Krev's midsection. The Zentari's thin frame could not absorb the impact. Ribs cracked and Krev folded over, gasping. Another cadet named Voss rushed from the right. Tyler pivoted and kicked out, his boot connecting with Voss's knee. The joint bent backwards with a pop. Voss collapsed, shrieking in pain. 2.1 seconds. The remaining three attacked together, trying to overwhelm him with numbers. Tyler's training took over completely now. He had studied martial arts since childhood on Earth. Judo, Muay Thai, Krav Maga. Every human soldier learned multiple fighting styles because on Earth, you might face anything from a bar fight to a wild animal attack. He grabbed the closest cadet's baton arm and twisted. The cadet flipped through the air and slammed onto his back, the air exploding from his lungs. Tyler kept the baton and used it to parry the next attack, then jabbed the weapon into the attacker's solar plexus. The electric shock was unnecessary. The impact alone dropped him. The last cadet, seeing his 6 companions on the ground, hesitated. That hesitation was fatal to his chances. Tyler closed the distance in one stride and delivered a precise strike to the cadet's temple. Not hard enough to cause permanent damage, but enough to shut down consciousness immediately. The cadet crumpled. 3.7 seconds total. Tyler stood in the center of 7 bodies, breathing only slightly harder than normal. His hands were steady. His heart rate was elevated but not racing. Around him, the cadets groaned and writhed in pain. Pack clutched his shattered wrist. Voss held his destroyed knee. Krev gasped for air with his broken ribs. The others were either unconscious or too dazed to move. Tyler had not used his full strength. If he had, several of them would be dead. He had controlled every strike, calculating exactly how much force to use against their fragile biology. Enough to stop the threat. Not enough to kill. He looked down at Krev, who stared up at him with wide eyes filled with shock and pain. "I warned you," Tyler said quietly. The sound of running footsteps echoed through the corridor. Station security finally responding to the commotion. Tyler set down the baton he had taken and raised his hands where they could be seen. He did not resist as 3 security officers rounded the corner with weapons drawn. They stopped when they saw the scene. 7 cadets down, some bleeding, all injured. One human standing calmly in the middle, hands raised, completely unharmed. What happened here? The lead security officer demanded, his weapon trained on Tyler. "They attacked me," Tyler said simply. "I defended myself." The officer looked at the 7 injured cadets, then back at Tyler. His expression showed disbelief mixed with something that might have been fear. "You did this? All of them?" "Yes, sir. I can explain everything." Another security officer was already checking the injured cadets and calling for medical teams. "We need emergency medical to maintenance corridor 7. Multiple casualties. Serious injuries." The lead officer kept his weapon pointed at Tyler. "Don't move. We're going to sort this out at security headquarters." "I understand, sir." Tyler kept his hands raised and stayed perfectly still. Within minutes, medical teams arrived with stretchers. They loaded the 7 injured cadets carefully, running scanners and administering emergency treatment. Tyler heard fragments of their reports. Multiple fractures. Severe concussions. Dislocated joints. Broken ribs. All 7 would survive, but they would spend significant time in the ICU. As security escorted Tyler away, he looked back at the corridor one last time. He had not wanted this. But they had given him no choice. Sometimes the only way to stop a bully was to show them exactly why you should never corner something more dangerous than yourself. Tyler sat alone in the security office, his hands resting calmly on the metal table in front of him. The chair was too small for his frame, designed for species with lighter builds. He had been waiting for 2 hours now, but he showed no signs of impatience or worry. He simply sat and breathed steadily, his mind replaying the events in the corridor. Through the observation window he could see security officers moving back and forth. They kept glancing at him with expressions he could not quite read. Fear perhaps. Or maybe respect. Possibly both. The door finally opened and Station Commander Chin walked in. She was human too, one of only 3 at the entire academy. Her hair was gray and her face showed the lines of someone who had spent decades in military service. She carried a data pad and her expression was unreadable. "Cadet Brooks." She sat down across from him. "Commander." Tyler sat up straighter but remained calm. Chin set the data pad on the table and studied him for a long moment. Do you know what you've done? I defended myself against 7 attackers, ma'am. 7 cadets are in the ICU. Pak has a compound fracture in his arm. Voss will need surgery to repair his knee. Krev has 4 broken ribs and a punctured lung. Dren has a severe concussion. The other 3 have various fractures, dislocations, and 1 has a cracked skull. Tyler met her gaze steadily. Yes, ma'am. I'm aware of their injuries. This happened in less than 4 seconds, according to our investigation. 3.7 seconds, ma'am. Chin leaned back in her chair. You understand how serious this is? 7 cadets attacked you with non-lethal weapons. You put all of them in critical care. Some species would call that excessive force. Permission to speak freely, ma'am? Granted. Tyler leaned forward slightly. They ambushed me in an isolated corridor with no security cameras. They were armed with shock batons. 7 against 1. They made their intentions clear. They wanted to hurt me badly enough that I would be forced to leave the academy. I used the minimum force necessary to stop the immediate threat to my safety. Minimum force. Chen's eyebrow raised. You broke bones, ruptured organs, and caused traumatic brain injuries. Yes, ma'am. Because anything less would not have stopped them. Their species have different pain tolerances and threat responses than humans. A strike that would stop a human might only anger a Zentari. I calculated each impact based on their physiology. If I had used my full strength, several of them would be dead right now instead of recovering in medical. Chin studied him for another moment, then tapped her data pad. We've been reviewing security footage from the past 6 months. Footage from cameras in areas where they were operational. She turned the pad around so Tyler could see. The screen showed various recordings. Krev and his group tampering with Tyler's training equipment. The same group spreading chemicals near Tyler's food station. Multiple incidents of them blocking his path or causing minor accidents. Why didn't you report any of this? Chin asked. Tyler looked at the footage without emotion. I was told to avoid causing trouble, ma'am. To focus on my studies and not make waves. I thought if I ignored them they would eventually stop. They didn't stop. They escalated. Yes, ma'am. Chin swiped through more footage. 3 days ago we found evidence that someone tampered with your environmental suit before the zero-gravity exercise. If you hadn't caught it during your pre-check, you would have died in vacuum. We've traced that tampering to Dren and Pak. Tyler said nothing. You could have died, cadet. And you still didn't report it. I had no proof it was intentional, ma'am. It could have been ruled an accident. Chin shook her head slowly. You're either incredibly patient or incredibly foolish. Maybe both. She pulled up another video. This is from tonight. From a maintenance camera they didn't know was still operational. The screen showed the corridor from a high angle. Tyler watched himself walk into the frame. Then the 7 cadets emerged from hiding spots surrounding him. The footage had no audio but the confrontation was clear. Krev gesturing aggressively. Tyler standing still with his hands visible. Then Pak lunging forward with his baton. What followed looked almost impossible even on camera. Tyler's movements were so fast that the video struggled to capture them clearly. One moment the 7 cadets were standing. The next moment they were all on the ground. The time stamp showed exactly 3.7 seconds between the first attack and the last cadet falling. Chin paused the video. I've shown this to our combat instructors. Every single one of them agrees that you showed remarkable restraint. You could have killed all 7 of them easily. Instead, you incapacitated them with precisely calibrated force. You even checked their vital signs while waiting for security to arrive. They made a stupid choice, ma'am, but they didn't deserve to die for it. No, they didn't. Chin closed the video and looked at Tyler directly. But many humans in your position would have killed them anyway. Deathworlder instincts are powerful. In a life-threatening situation, most species default to maximum aggression. You didn't. I'm trained to control those instincts, ma'am. Clearly. Chin stood up and walked to the window looking out at the station beyond. Do you know what the other cadets are saying about you right now? No, ma'am. Some are terrified. They're saying humans are too dangerous to be allowed in the academy. That your people are violent animals who can't control themselves. She turned back to face him. Others are saying something different. They're saying you showed incredible discipline. That you gave Krev and his group every chance to walk away. That you warned them multiple times. And that when forced to fight, you used exactly enough force to survive and no more. Tyler remained silent, waiting. Chin returned to her seat. I've been in the military for 32 years. I've seen combat on 6 different worlds. I've commanded soldiers from 20 different species. And I can tell you that what you did tonight was one of the most impressive displays of combat control I've ever witnessed. Thank you, ma'am. That wasn't a compliment, Cadet. It was an observation. Chen's expression hardened slightly. You put 7 students in the ICU. There will be consequences. Hearings. Investigations. Their families are already demanding justice. I understand, ma'am. But. Chen tapped the datapad again. The evidence is overwhelming. Months of documented harassment that you never reported. Clear video evidence of them ambushing you with weapons. Your repeated attempts at de-escalation. And medical analysis shows you could have caused far more damage than you did. She stood up. You're confined to quarters pending the formal hearing. That should happen within 48 hours. But between you and me, I don't think you'll face any serious charges. Self-defense is clearly established. Tyler stood as well. And the others, ma'am? Krev and his group are looking at expulsion at minimum. Possibly criminal charges for assault with weapons and attempted murder. The evidence against them is substantial. Chen moved toward the door then paused. One more thing, Cadet Brooks. Ma'am? How did it feel? Taking down 7 opponents in less than 4 seconds. Tyler considered the question carefully. Necessary, ma'am. But not good. I didn't want to hurt them. I just wanted to go back to my dorm and sleep. Chen nodded slowly. That's the right answer. You're dismissed. Security will escort you to your quarters. As Tyler left the office, he saw other cadets in the hallway. They pressed themselves against the walls as he passed, giving him wide berth. Some looked frightened. Others looked curious. A few nodded with what might have been respect. Tyler ignored them all and followed the security escort back to his room. Tomorrow would bring more questions, more investigations, more attention. But tonight he had survived. And he had proven something important. That being strong wasn't just about how hard you could hit. It was about knowing when to hit and how hard and when to stop. That was the real power of a Deathworlder. The formal hearing took place in the Academy's main conference room 2 days after the incident. Tyler sat at a table facing a panel of 5 senior officers from different species. Commander Chen sat to one side as a witness. The room was filled with other cadets, instructors, and officials who had come to see the outcome of the case that everyone was talking about. Tyler wore his dress uniform and sat with his back straight. He had answered every question truthfully and completely. The panel had reviewed all the evidence, watched the security footage multiple times, and heard testimony from witnesses. Now they were ready to deliver their findings. Admiral Court, a Vraxian with deep blue skin and 4 arms, spoke first. His translator converted his words into standard galactic common. Cadet Tyler Brooks, this panel has completed its investigation into the events of 2 nights ago. We have examined all available evidence and testimony. The room fell silent. Every eye was on Tyler. The evidence shows that you were the victim of a sustained harassment campaign lasting approximately 6 months. During this time, you made no formal complaints and took no aggressive action against your harassers. You followed proper protocols and attempted to resolve the situation through passive means. Admiral Court paused and looked down at his data pad. The evidence further shows that on the night in question, 7 cadets ambushed you in an isolated location. They were armed with shock batons. They threatened you with physical harm unless you voluntarily left the academy. You attempted verbal de-escalation multiple times. You warned them that their actions were a mistake. Only when physically attacked did you defend yourself. Another panel member, a female officer from a species Tyler did not recognize, spoke next. Medical analysis of the injuries sustained by your attackers shows something remarkable. Despite your overwhelming physical advantage, you calibrated your defensive strikes with precision. Each impact was sufficient to incapacitate but not to kill or cause permanent damage. Our combat experts agree that you showed extraordinary restraint. A third officer added, we have also uncovered evidence of previous attempts to harm you. The tampering with your environmental suit has been traced definitively to 2 of your attackers. That act alone could have resulted in your death and constitutes attempted murder under galactic law. Admiral Court stood up. This panel finds that you acted in lawful self-defense. No charges will be filed against you. You are fully vindicated and free to continue your studies at this academy. Furthermore, this panel commends you for your restraint and discipline under extreme circumstances. Tyler released a breath he had not realized he was holding. Thank you, Admiral. As for the 7 cadets who attacked you, Admiral Court continued, they face immediate expulsion from the academy. Additionally, criminal charges are being filed against all 7 for assault with weapons, conspiracy to commit assault, and in the case of Dren and Pack, attempted murder for the environmental suit tampering. Their military careers are over before they truly began. The room erupted in whispers and murmurs. Tyler sat quietly as the panel dismissed the hearing. Other cadets looked at him with new eyes. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Respect. Understanding. Maybe even admiration. Commander Chin approached him as the room emptied. Well done, cadet. You handled yourself well in there. Thank you, ma'am. What happens now? Now you get back to your normal routine. Training, classes, all of it. The Academy is implementing new protocols for harassment reporting and intervention. What happened to you won't happen to anyone else if we can help it. Tyler nodded. I appreciate that, ma'am. There's something else. Chin handed him a data pad. You have a visitor request. From the medical wing. Krev wants to see you. Tyler looked at the pad in surprise. Why? He didn't say. But he's requested it officially. You're under no obligation to go. Tyler thought about it for a moment. I'll go. An hour later, Tyler walked through the medical wing of the station. The ICU was quiet except for the beeping of monitors and the hum of medical equipment. A nurse directed him to Krev's room at the far end. The Zentari lay in a medical bed surrounded by machines. Bandages wrapped around his thin chest where the broken ribs were healing. His long arms rested on top of the blankets, and his face looked pale even by his species standards. He turned his head when Tyler entered. You came. Krev's voice was weak but clear. You asked to see me. Tyler stood near the door, unsure if he should come closer. Sit. Please. Krev gestured weakly to a chair beside the bed. Tyler sat down carefully. The chair creaked under his weight. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The medical monitors beeped steadily in the background. I watched the footage, Krev finally said. The investigators showed it to all of us. Made us watch what we did. What you did. Tyler remained silent, letting him continue. I saw it in slow motion. Frame by frame. They wanted us to understand exactly what happened. Krev's eyes met Tyler's. Do you know what I saw? What did you see? Mercy. Krev's voice cracked slightly. Every single strike you made was controlled. Precise. You broke my ribs but you angled the blow to avoid my heart and lungs. You shattered Pack's arm but you could have torn it off. You kicked Voss's knee but you pulled back at the last second or you would have destroyed it completely. Tyler said nothing. The doctors explained it to us. They said a human at full strength could have killed all 7 of us with single strikes. Your punches can generate enough force to crack metal. Your kicks can shatter reinforced barriers. You're evolved to fight creatures that would eat any of us without effort. Krev looked away. And we attacked you with shock batons like we were teaching you a lesson. You made a mistake, Tyler said quietly. We made a terrible mistake. A potentially fatal one. Krev turned back to face him. But you didn't kill us. You didn't even permanently harm us. The doctors say we'll all make full recoveries. Pack's arm will heal. Voss's knee will be fine. My ribs are already mending. In 3 months we'll all be physically back to normal. I'm glad to hear that. Why? Krev's eyes showed genuine confusion. We tried to hurt you. We wanted to force you out of the academy. We sabotaged your equipment. We could have killed you. Why are you glad we're recovering? Tyler leaned forward slightly. Because you're young and stupid, but you don't deserve to have your whole lives destroyed for one terrible decision. You needed to be stopped, but you didn't need to die. Krev was quiet for a long moment. My people have a saying. True strength is not in the fist, but in the restraint of the fist. I never really understood it until now. It's a good saying. I wanted to apologize, Krev said. To say I'm sorry for everything. For the harassment, for the sabotage, for the attack. I was jealous and angry and I took it out on you. That was wrong. Tyler nodded. Apology accepted. I also wanted to thank you. For showing mercy. For not killing me when you easily could have. For being better than I was. Krev extended one thin hand. I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand what you are. Not a brute or an animal. A soldier. A real one. Tyler looked at the offered hand for a moment, then reached out and shook it carefully. Krev's bones felt fragile in his grip, but the Zentari didn't flinch. Get better, Krev. Learn from this. Be better. I will. We all will. Krev settled back into his pillows, suddenly looking exhausted. The others want to apologize too when they're able. Pack especially. He feels terrible about the environmental suit. Tell them I accept their apologies. And tell them to make something good come from this. Don't let it be for nothing. Tyler stood up to leave. At the door he paused and looked back. Krev was watching him with an expression that might have been respect or might have been something else. Understanding, perhaps. Tyler, Krev called out. What you did that night, fighting 7 of us at once and winning, is that normal for humans? Tyler considered the question. Most humans could have beaten 7 of you. But most humans would have killed you doing it. The hard part wasn't winning the fight. The hard part was winning without killing anyone. He left Krev thinking about that as he walked out of the medical wing and back toward the training areas. There were still classes to attend and lessons to learn. His life at the academy would continue, different now but still moving forward. And somewhere in the ICU, 7 cadets were learning the most important lesson of their military careers. That mercy was not weakness. It was the ultimate display of strength. 3 months had passed since the incident in the maintenance corridor. Tyler walked through the academy halls and noticed how different things felt now. Cadets still stepped aside when he approached, but the fear in their eyes had changed into something else. Curiosity. Respect. Some even nodded greetings as he passed. The formal expulsion of Krev and his 6 companions had happened quickly. Despite their apologies and genuine remorse, the evidence against them was too severe. Attempted murder, conspiracy, assault with weapons. The academy could not overlook such serious violations. All 7 had been sent home to their respective worlds. Their military careers ended before they truly began. Tyler had not felt joy at their expulsion. He had actually felt sadness. They had made terrible choices, but they were still young people who had thrown away their futures. Still, rules existed for a reason. Actions had consequences. What surprised Tyler more was what happened after the hearing. Commander Chin had called him to her office one morning with an unusual request. The Academy Board has been discussing how to prevent incidents like this in the future, she had explained. We're implementing new protocols for harassment reporting, better security coverage, and mandatory training on species integration and differences. That sounds good, ma'am, Tyler had replied, wondering why she was telling him this. We want you to be part of the training program. As an instructor. Tyler had stared at her in disbelief. Ma'am, I'm still a cadet. I haven't even graduated. You'll maintain your cadet status and continue your regular classes. But twice a week, you'll help teach special seminars on Deathworlder biology capabilities and most importantly, restraint. The board believes your experience makes you uniquely qualified. That conversation had been 2 months ago. Now Tyler spent his mornings in regular classes learning tactics, strategy, and military history like any other cadet. But twice a week in the afternoons, he stood in front of groups of cadets from dozens of different species and taught them about humans. The first few classes had been awkward. Tyler was not a natural teacher, and many cadets had been nervous around him. But he had found his rhythm eventually. He did not lecture about human superiority or try to intimidate anyone. Instead, he focused on understanding. Today's class had 20 cadets from 15 different species. They sat in a semicircle around Tyler as he stood in the center of the training room. A holographic display showed various images and data behind him. Let's talk about perception, Tyler began. When you look at me, what do you see? A brave cadet from a low-gravity world raised her hand. We see someone stronger than us. Faster. More dangerous. That's accurate, Tyler agreed. Humans evolved on a Class 9 death world. High gravity made us strong. Dangerous predators made us fast. Deadly diseases made our immune systems aggressive. We're built to survive in conditions that would kill most of you within hours. He pulled up an image of Earth. But here's what you need to understand. Being physically capable doesn't make someone violent or uncontrolled. Every species has strengths. Yours might be in intelligence or technology or social cooperation. Ours happens to be in physical adaptation. Another cadet, a Vraxian with blue skin, spoke up. But what happened with Krev and the others proves that humans are dangerous. You put 7 cadets in the ICU in less than 4 seconds. You're right. That did happen. Tyler nodded. Now let me show you something. He pulled up the security footage from that night. The class had seen it before, but Tyler paused it at key moments. Look here. This is when Pac first attacked me. My body's threat response activated. Adrenaline flooded my system. My perception of time slowed down. My muscles prepared for maximum output. He advanced the footage frame by frame. But look at my strikes. Each one is controlled. Calculated. I'm not flailing or attacking in rage. I'm neutralizing threats with minimum necessary force. That's not instinct. That's training overriding instinct. A small cadet from a peaceful herbivore species raised his hand timidly. How do you learn to control something like that? When your body is screaming at you to fight. The same way you learn anything. Practice. Discipline. Understanding yourself. Tyler turned off the footage. Every species has instincts. Yours might be to run from danger. Mine is to fight it. But we're all intelligent beings capable of controlling our base instincts. That's what separates us from animals. He spent the next hour walking them through exercises in threat assessment, de-escalation, and proportional response. He demonstrated strikes in slow motion, showing how adjusting angle or force could mean the difference between incapacitation and death. He taught them to read human body language and understand when a human was actually dangerous versus just present. Remember, he concluded as the class ended, being strong isn't the same as being violent. The strongest people I know are the ones who can choose not to use their full strength. That choice is what makes them strong. The cadets filed out, but several stayed behind to ask questions. This happened after every class now. They wanted to understand, to learn, to bridge the gap between their species and his. After the classroom cleared, Tyler headed to Commander Chen's office for his weekly report. She listened as he described the class, then pulled up a data pad. Your story has spread beyond the academy, she said. News services across the galaxy have picked it up. Human cadet shows restraint in defending against 7 attackers. It's being used as a teaching example in military academies on 17 different worlds. Tyler felt uncomfortable with the attention. I just did what anyone should do, ma'am. No, you did what very few would do. You showed that power without control is just violence, but power with control is strength. Chin smiled slightly. The Academy Board has made a decision. When you graduate next year, you're being promoted to junior instructor with a specialty in species integration and Deathworlder training. Ma'am, I appreciate that, but I wanted to go into active service. You will be in active service. Teaching is one of the most important services you can provide. You'll help train the next generation of officers to understand and work with species different from their own. You'll help prevent other incidents like what happened to you. Tyler thought about that. It was not the career path he had imagined, but maybe it was the one he needed to follow. There's more, Shin continued. The Galactic Council has requested that you speak at their annual military symposium next month. They want to hear directly from you about restraint, control, and species cooperation. That's a lot of attention for one fight, ma'am. It's not about the fight, Cadet Brooks. It's about what the fight represented. For years, many species have feared Deathworlders. They see you as uncontrolled violence waiting to happen. You proved that wrong. You showed that humans can be trusted with power because you understand when not to use it. Over the following weeks, Tyler's influence grew. The Academy implemented his training suggestions as official protocol. New cadets from Deathworlds received specialized orientation to help them adjust their strength to multi-species environments. Regular cadets learned about Deathworlder biology and capabilities, reducing fear through education. The symposium speech went better than Tyler expected. He spoke honestly about his experience, about the harassment he endured, about the choice he made to defend himself without killing. He talked about Krev's apology and the understanding they had reached. We're all serving the same cause, he told the assembled military leaders from 100 different worlds. We're all trying to protect our people and maintain peace. Our differences in biology don't change that shared purpose. If anything, our differences make us stronger together. I can do things you can't. You can do things I can't. That's not a problem. That's an opportunity. The speech was recorded and broadcast across the galaxy. It sparked discussions in military academies, government chambers, and civilian forums. Some still feared Deathworlders, but more began to understand them. Back at the academy, Tyler continued his regular classes and his teaching duties. He graduated the following year at the top of his class in both academic and physical performance. True to her word, Commander Chen promoted him to junior instructor. His first act in his new position was to establish a mentorship program pairing Deathworlder cadets with experienced officers. He wanted to make sure no one else faced the isolation and harassment he had experienced. One afternoon, Tyler received a message on his personal communication device. It was from Krev. The Zentari had found work as a civilian logistics coordinator on his homeworld. His message was short but meaningful. I saw your speech at the symposium. You're changing minds across the galaxy. I wanted you to know that I'm trying to do better too. I'm teaching young people here about respecting differences and learning from mistakes. Thank you for not giving up on us. For showing us there's a better way. You're a true soldier. Tyler read the message twice, then saved it. It reminded him why his new path was important. He was not just teaching combat or species biology. He was teaching understanding, respect, the idea that strength meant more than just physical power. As he walked through the academy that evening, Tyler saw cadets from dozens of species training together. Some were deathworlders like him. Others were from peaceful worlds with low gravity. They were learning to work together, to respect each other's abilities and limitations. That was the real victory. Not the fight in the corridor. Not the vindication at the hearing. The real victory was this: building a future where species different from each other could serve side by side without fear. Tyler smiled as he headed to his quarters. Tomorrow he would teach another class. More cadets would learn. More minds would open. More bridges would be built between species. And maybe, eventually, incidents like his would become impossible because everyone would understand a simple truth. That the measure of strength was not in how much damage you could cause, but in how much damage you chose not to cause. That was the lesson of the Deathworlder. That was the path forward. And Tyler would spend his career making sure that lesson spread to every corner of the galaxy.